my 11-year-old daughter. And it's like, what? Because I'm gonna zone a piece of land for affordable housing? You're gonna, so it's very strange to me, but I do think you need to separate, to some degree, politics from, for instance, this profession. In that, because politics has, as that gentleman pointed out, a long history, and it's part of the First Amendment was a big part of why we broke away from England, because we did have the ability, and it's been very, very strong. I would probably agree to some degree with this gentleman that said, in politics, we may have gotten more civil because it was far more brutal early on, especially in the 1900s. If you read any political history, Abraham Lincoln was virtually assassinated every day in terms of public opinion and what they did. But in politics, if you get in that business, to some degree, that's what you have to expect. You have to have somewhat thick skin, because people, everyone believes they have the right approach and they have the right opinion, and my response to them always is then get into politics. But they don't, and everyone likes, but it's part of what politics is in this country. And so, to some degree, I listen to that and it rolls off, because you just have to make decisions based on what you think is best for the people that you serve. But in this profession, in the legal profession, that behavior is totally unacceptable and should not be tolerated. And I do believe that these television pieces and the sound bites, and the reason no one reasons anymore is because all we do as politicians is try to get the sound bite in, because that's all they're going to play. They're not going to give you the whole logic and the rationale. So I just think we need to break it out a little bit, because I think we have perhaps gotten maybe slightly more civil in politics, although you don't believe that. But in the profession, I think we've gotten, certainly it's gotten definitely worse. And then I think in society as a whole and in general it's gotten worse. But I think to some degree you have to expect it when you're an elected official. It's kind of part of the gig.
Janet.
I think to some degree we've become at least verbally more tolerant. And just a very brief story, I was at our 4th of July celebration a couple of years ago, and there were some junior high school age boys who were being extraordinarily foul-mouthed around a number of families. And nobody said anything, and I finally turned around and I said, you know, that's not appropriate behavior when you are around a group of families. Now my husband turned to me later and said, one of these days you're going to get stabbed. And I said, the problem is if no one says anything, they think it's okay behavior. And I think in large part, it's kind of like Hillary Clinton's, takes a village. We are no longer the village that is given responsibility for teaching people at a young age how to behave appropriately.
Yes.
I'm Mike Levy. I think that when we're talking about civility in the legal profession, one of the biggest causes of incivility is the size of the bench and the mobility of practice areas. When you can be a lawyer in a civil courtroom and never have to look at the same judge again, or stare across the table from the same attorney ever again. I was in private practice for 10 years before I went to the state. And now on my furlough days, I'm volunteering in the misdemeanor unit of the Yolo County DA's office. I have never seen a more civil bunch than the PDs and the DAs in the Yolo County Misdemeanors Office that have to sit across from the table with each other every single day, day in and day out. So I think that that's one side of it. And the other side of it is exactly what Judge Gard is mentioning, which is the tolerance for it, which I think sometimes the bench tends to get a little bit numb and tends to disregard it because they're too used to it. And so they're not enforcing, in many respects, the behavior that you would hope that everybody would display in court.
I keep hearing the comment about anonymity, in a sense, and I'm reading a book called Traffic, which has done studies about how people are more aggressive and less civil in big cities or where they think they aren't going to be known by the person they're honking at. It's fascinating, and the idea about on the internet, if you're anonymous, you act worse. What's going on there, Deborah?
Yeah, Deborah Houston. It's a great reminder to be at the end of court meetings monthly and hear about the rules of ethics and civility. And I think about what can we do to stop the motion of the ocean when there are these reality TV shows that the TV stations produce because they're less costly, and it does have an effect on society. I do believe that, but just having a reminder monthly it's a privilege for people who are able to come here and get that. But at times it does feel lonely to be among the few who get it regularly.
I want to try to get to everybody, but I want to raise another issue because I think it's an important point that was presented in this act. And that is the question of whether there are social class issues involved in civility. And in working on this program, I thought about the movie Titanic. And I thought about the high society people on the upper levels of the boat and the lower society people forced to be on the lower levels of the boat. And the people on the lower levels of the boat were expected to be civil when they were denied the life rafts or the lifeboats. And my question to you is, in some sense, is civility used to shut people up? Is civility used by the people in power and authority, and we are that group? Do we use civility as a means to keep those who are as mad as hell and aren't going to take it anymore and put them in their place? Yes?
I think the absolute answer to that is yes. I think civility is used as a weapon. Because, and if you look at it from a class standpoint, too often you can say, civility is based on the premise that we're acting like rational people and we have persuasive arguments and we use facts and we try to engage in intellectual dialogue. Well, the hard fact is so-called lower class people, which I don't accept that term as a premise, but I'll work with it. They may not be as educated. Now, they might be the most civil people ever, but they may not be educated, may be not able to explain things in a rational way, but react more emotionally. That doesn't mean that what they have to say is wrong. They may not be able to articulate it. And so as you might frustrate them and raise their frustration level in discussing with them in a rational way, and they start yelling, you can use civility as a weapon to shut them up. And I think it's sort of dangerous. I think there's something, when we use civility as sort of a weapon to separate ourselves from the people that might not have the same rational tools as we're supposed to have in our profession, I think that really can come off as snobbish and ultimately counterproductive and dangerous.
Yes.
And I'll disagree, Mark B. Hertog. As someone who has had pro-pers appearing in my courtroom, I don't think that at all they are asked to stop talking when they're being disrespectful. They're asked to approach the court, tell me what you want, tell me why you want it, but you have to respect the court and all the litigants that are present in the courtroom. The lawyer has to talk to me that way, you have to talk to me that way. And it's not about education or the validity to the argument. Everybody gets to be heard. It is the way in which you're heard that is what the court expects.
Let's see, Ray.
Yeah, Raymond today. A voice of dissent. I don't think lawyers are less civil now. I got a lot of gray hair. When I came up, I saw lawyers square off, ready to slug each other in a deposition because they'd been drinking beer and it was 7 at night and in the middle of the deposition. I saw litigation partners try and intimidate junior attorneys, telling them they're going to tear their lungs out if they get them to trial. I mean, what you're talking about on these things and this media stuff, I don't think the lawyers do. I think lawyers behave better now.
I bet I could ask some other judges and justices if lawyers are acting better or worse lately, and they might have different opinions. Anybody?
I'm not a judge, but I think, Ray, you've been on the fence too long. You don't see lawyers every day anymore. And when lawyers come to the courtroom, the worst, most uncivil, most unprofessional people, Frank Lodoskovich, those kind of folks, they're really nice in the courtroom. But they're not really nice on the phone, and they're not really nice in letters, and they're not really nice when you're not there. I've been practicing for 30 years in this town, and I'll tell you, it's a lot worse now than anything you and I were ever involved in when we were on opposite sides of cases 30 years ago. You know, it's still fine. Jim and I will yell at each other through depositions all day, but we get along okay. But there are a lot of lawyers that will yell at you through depositions, and then they will lie, cheat, and steal, which didn't happen 30 years ago. It really didn't.
You wanted to comment. You still have a comment? Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Michelle Mitchell. I think it's dangerous to go down the road of talking about it being a class issue. I think it's you know people from every walk of life that can be civil. I know people who have no roof over their head, that have no place to call home, that are more civil than folks that have more things than we could ever hope for. I think having to do with the courtroom, you have issues of understanding the process. And you're right, you're gonna have pro-pers, you're gonna have attorneys, you're gonna have folks who are very aggressive in advocating for themselves in their position, who may be considered rude or perhaps not conducting themselves in the correct manner. And sometimes that's because they're just jerks, and sometimes it's because they're not being heard. And I think it's a little dangerous to try and draw a distinction based on their income, or where they grew up, or what they've been exposed to per se.
John?
I agree with Alan Owen that in civil practice, you don't see the incivility so much in the courtroom as you do in the discovery, in phone calls, in letters. But I also disagree with Frank Radoslavich in that I think incivility is used as a weapon. It's used as a weapon by politicians to win elections. It's used by these people that participate in the reality shows, from the sponsors that pay money to get their products seen on TV, because people like watching people acting like buffoons and animals and hoping it's going to turn violent. And that hasn't changed, and it's gotten worse. I think in terms of the legal profession, I've now practiced 40 years, too long, you're right. 40 years as a lawyer, 32 and a half in Sacramento, and I've watched this legal community here go from a very cordial, professional group of lawyers who knew each other, and young lawyers who came to town were met with courtesy, with mentoring to, it's everyone for themselves, except over in the criminal courts, where you see lawyers cordial and professional. So I think as long as politicians win elections by being ugly, and it doesn't have to be Democrat versus Republican, just look at our sheriff's race, which is about as ugly as I've ever seen in Sacramento. And it's going to continue on if you can win by being slimy and underhanded and make unfounded accusations, because the First Amendment protects political speech.
And that's, we've got to move on, but that's a perfect segue into our next act, which talks about whether incivility is modeled and learned in the legal profession.
Incivility continues to spread throughout society, and naturally, the legal profession is not spared.
Well, I looked at your answer that you got to the complaint. The entire thing needs to be rewritten. You're admitting way too much here.
But don't we have to admit the truth?
The truth? The truth is disputed. The whole point of the answer is to designate which facts are at issue. You don't want to give everything away before we have a chance to find out what's going on with discovery.
Well, I talked to the client, and I think I have a pretty good idea of what's going on.
You have a pretty good idea of what's going on. It's too soon to concede the facts. I want you to take your answer, rewrite it, and in every paragraph, I want you to write, defendant lacks sufficient information and belief to admit or deny the allegation, and therefore on that basis denies the allegation. That will reserve this issue for further litigation and billing.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Okay, now let's talk about your responses to interrogatories. Why did you answer these?
Isn't that what I'm supposed to do?
Not when they are vague, ambiguous, overbroad, unduly burdensome, conjunctive, disjunctive, compound, calls for legal conclusions, calls for privileged information, or unlikely to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence.
Okay, well, which ones do that?
All of them! These are terrible questions. You should start with a series of objections. Then you decide if you even want to put an answer. This will make them have to do the motion to compel. Then they're going to have to send us a letter for meet and confer. Then it's back in our hands again. You need to aggressively defend this at every step. You cannot conceal this.
Excuse me, Ms. Mentor, Attorney Reese is on line 1. You like...
Mentor here. Look, even though your bar number is very low and you haven't been practicing very long, I'm not going to hold your inexperience against you. But you know what? Your analysis of this case is ludicrous. Yeah, and your offer, it's pure fantasy. I know you don't know what you're doing. But you know what? You're going to have to go to your little client and ask them to do better, much better. No, I'm not going to offer you a continuance. I don't care that your wife is in labor. Listen, you have other attorneys over there. Make it happen.
Wow, you were pretty harsh with him.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Do not concede anything. Defend this aggressively every step of the way. That is going to serve you well in their business. Your clients will be happy with your strong defense, and it'll make you a boatload of money.
Okay, I get what you're saying now.
And so, class, the majority of the United States Supreme Court just arbitrarily threw out decades of legal precedent. It is the most outrageous, politically motivated decision by this cowardly majority that I have ever read. And it's a sad day for America, a sad day.
But Professor, look at what the majority is saying. You might not agree with the outcome, but your analysis is biased.
Young lady, there is nothing of intellectual value in this decision. Nothing. No thing. And when you become a lawyer, I do not want you to accept this drivel as if it were gospel. So long as this majority continues to spew out this kind of garbage, I will continue to call it as I see it. This Supreme Court is politically motivated. Do not bow down to bad law.
Even judges are affected by the spreading incivility and are passing it on to others.
So, how do you like being the new guy on the bench, Junior? Getting your sea legs? More importantly, have you held any lawyers in contempt yet? That's my favorite part of the job.
Gosh, no golly, Judge. I haven't done that, but I'm having a swell time. You know, I love people. I love having the opportunity to help them out when they're really having problems. My heart goes out to all of them.
That's a load of crap, Brown. We're judges, not social workers. For Christ's sakes, what's the matter with you? Are you some kind of liberal weenie, Brown? You look like you're kind of a liberal weenie to me. I don't cotton to liberal weenie.
Judge, I'm not a liberal weenie. I can be tough, I promise. Just give me another chance.
Well, all right. Tell you what, I'm going to teach you a few tricks of the trade. Now, pay attention, Sparky, and you just might learn something.
This is great, Judge. Teach me. Please teach me.
All right, Grasshopper. First of all, treat all the lawyers like they're the same.
All the same.
I don't care if it's Sally Sweetheart or Gary Goodguy. Treat them all like they're Don Heller. Now try this. Say, overruled.
Well, okay, I'll try. I'm terribly sorry, counsel, but I need to overrule your objection. However, that was a swell try. Maybe you'll win the next one. How's that?
You're kidding me, right? This some kind of joke, Brown? What the hell is wrong with you? Hell, you don't even have a war face.
A war face? Judge Davidian, what's a war face?
A war face? I mean, for Christ's sake, you just fall off the turnip truck? A war face. Stern, commanding look about you. You gotta take over. You gotta show those idiots who runs that courtroom. What's the matter with you? Here, try this. Try that.
Oh, okay, I will. I'm gonna try. Arr.
You're weak and pathetic, Brown. You're a disgrace to the road.
Oh no, Judge Davidian, please. I want to be just like you. I'll do anything. Anything.
Anything, Brown?
Anything.
Well, in that case... Here, have a cookie.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, these are really swell.
Have another one.
Huh. Huh. Pretty good. Not bad. I mean, it probably won't make me puke. Actually, they kind of suck. Oh, I'm feeling different, but in a really good way. I feel a sense of power. I feel a girding of my loins. I want to take the bench.
He's ready.
Court is now in session. The Honorable Lawrence G. Brown presiding.
All right. What do you want, Mr. Heller?
If it please the court.
Nothing you could possibly say would please this court. Your objection is overruled.
But I didn't object, Your Honor.
Like that makes any bit of difference, this court will go ahead, impose its own objection on your behalf, overrule that objection. Now sit down.
With all due respect to Your Honor.
My work is done.
Meanwhile, the Laurence Olivier lab was frantically searching for a cure for the contagion, brainstorming possibilities.
What? What do you mean? It's that damn State Bar. They're in a panic over the pandemic. Imagine, lawyers misbehaving.
That's quite unfathomable, Doctor, but what if, as a cure for incivility, we adopted more ethics rules?
Nobody pays attention to those.
Well, what if we impose sanctions and discipline?
The State Bar doesn't have the money to enforce it. They don't have the resources. The attorneys have stopped paying the bar dues.
Well, what if we gave them continuing education and taught them how to be civil?
It's too boring. Nobody's going to attend a boring class. They need something entertaining. Something with skits, music, and dancing.
Right. Imagine a room full of judges and lawyers performing skits, singing and dancing. Quit with the ridiculous fantasy. Let's get back to work.
Eventually, incivility spread to everyone on the globe. Only one civil individual was left in the world.
I've got to talk to someone about this. I'm so frustrated. I think I've got to talk to the whole world about this. Breaker, breaker, this is Tap Dancer. Anyone out there? All you mouthpieces, anyone give me a holler? Is there a lawyer out there that even remembers how to say, yes, Your Honor? I never thought I'd say this, but I long for the days when someone starts with the opening, "May it please the court." Those were the good old days. I miss that so much. All I want is to live in a civil world where people are polite, where everyone's polite, where everyone is civil, where everyone defers to others. Is that too much to ask? Well, I guess I can imagine. I'm exhausted. This is Tap Dancer, over and out. I need to get some Z's.
Diddly-doo, 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 diddly-doo.
I know you noticed this deposition for today, but my client, it's just causing her so much stress. Is there a way we can cancel it?
Oh, good golly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause your client any unnecessary stress. I'll tell you what, let's just continue the deposition I scheduled 3 months ago for another day.
Well, what about your case? Isn't she the only witness to the incident?
Oh, pish tosh, don't worry about that. I'll figure out some way of developing the information that's less stressful for everybody.
I just feel so terrible about this. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know.
Don't give it a second thought. In fact, I'll tell you what, please accept this gift from me for all the trouble you went to come down here and personally tell me your client couldn't attend the deposition that I scheduled 4 months ago. Let's hug.
The people may proceed.
Your Honor, we'd like to enter into evidence exhibits 1 through 20, please.
Any objection?
Well, golly, Your Honor, I haven't even seen those exhibits. But the prosecutor's been so darn busy, I'm sure it was just an inadvertent oversight. Perhaps I could look at the exhibits if it's not too much trouble for you.
Oh, sure. It's just that we were approaching noon and I didn't want you to miss lunch.
Oh, that is so considerate of you. But I think I can look at them if it's not too much trouble.
Not too much trouble at all. Do you need any more light?
Oh, no. This is fine, thank you. Oh, you did a nice job with this one. This picture really captures the gruesome feel of the crime scene. Really nicely done.
I was worried there'd be a little bit too much blood, but you think it's okay?
Oh, no. I definitely think this will help your case. You have such an eye with these things.
I've always thought so too. You have a real talent when it comes to crime scene photos.
Oh, stop. You guys are making me blush.
Yes, these are all very well done. I have to admit, my client is not going to want these admitted into evidence, and they're certainly not going to help her case. But you worked so darn hard on them, and I don't want all that hard work to go to waste. Your Honor, we have no objection.
Very fine.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you both. This trial's been a delight. Ma'am, I'm sorry to report that it's probably not going your way, and you're probably going to spend a long, long time in jail or federal prison. But you have to admit, the trial's been a true delight.
Well, if I have to go to prison, I'm glad I'm being sent by such a pleasant judge.
Obviously,
Go ahead, talk to those idiots.
Chief idiot right here.
Hey, Sparky. How are you? Nice to see you, sir. Thank you.
We've seen that video, I gotta swear, a dozen times, and it still cracks me up. Obviously, we switched tracks here a little bit, and we've gone from incivility that we see on a regular basis in the everyday world to our legal world, where most of us are a little more concerned. And I want to start off by asking our